For those of us in the 90s and early 2000s, the phrase, "You're a wizard, Harry," may bring a lot of nostalgia. Growing up, the world and characters that JK Rowling created were an obsession for me. If I was given the choice, I would only read books from that series that, at that point in my life, were still releasing regularly. The amount of book reports that teachers let me get away with year after year that were just the first 5 Harry Potter books was probably concerning to those responsible for my education, trying to gauge my comprehension of reading anything not Harry Potter. Everything I could find that was HP related was a must-have. Over the decades, however, things have changed. Around the same time that I was discovering my own queer identity, JK was also coming out. But we seem to have landed on opposite sides. Myself as a just surviving in this world non-binary person, and her as a rich transphobe trying to influence UK politics. Since around 2019, JK Rowling has been vocal about her hatred and lack of understanding of the transgender community, and has also made bigoted comments about the asexual community in 2025. I can hear at least one of you saying, "This from the person that has a gay man as Hogwarts headmaster?" But it's also from the person who has never so much as hinted at this in the books, posting the announcement as a sort of bonus content. Somehow, given how things have turned out, I'm not too surprised that Rowling didn't have the on-page representation for her notable gay character. Along with the anti-LGBTQIA+ views, Rowling has also received criticism for her harmful portrayals of those in Jewish, Black, and Asian communities, among others. There are a lot of things that are wrong with Rowling's wizarding world, just like there are a lot of things wrong with Rowling and her views. I'll leave articles and other sources in the comments from people in those communities that can talk about these problems better than I can as a white, non-Jewish person. This to say, there are a lot of reasons that people may feel uncomfortable diving into or back into the Potterverse. JK Rowling has even tweeted that in the face of people burning their Potter books, she's essentially laughing all the way to the bank. While she hasn't explicitly said to support me is to support my views, with the things she has said, a lot of folks do view support for Rowling as such, myself included. So it is generally accepted that we should not support Rowling or her works in any further manner. Now, with that in mind, let's go over some books that aren't Harry Potter, but in my experience, are similar to and give off the same amazing vibes that the Potter books gave me growing up. These are the books I'd recommend instead of Harry Potter. First, the Time Traveler's Trilogy, also known as the Gideon Trilogy or The Enlightenment of Peter Shock by Linda Buckley Archer. This science fiction trilogy, published between 2006 and 2009, was one of the first series that truly gave Potter a run for its money in my child eyes. The books The Time Travelers, The Tarman, and Timequake, at least as far as their American titles are. These follow the misadventures of two 12-year-old kids, Kate Dyer and the previously mentioned Peter Shock, as they wind up going back in time thanks to a faulty invention called the anti-gravity machine. They go from the early 2000s all the way back to 1763. A nice gentleman called Gideon Seymour, yes, that Gideon, finds them and agrees to help them despite being initially skeptical about what has happened to them. Rather quickly turns to their aid, especially in fighting against the man who stole the kids one chance at getting home. A man called the Tarman has taken the machine as a curio for his own means and gives the children quite a hassle to get it back, despite nobody quite understanding the machine, its workings, or how to go back or go to the future, where the kids come from. I will admit it's quite different from Potter in genre and topic, but I do recall loving the characters and plot as a kid. It's a little less enjoyable as an adult who wants to pick apart the details, but similar could be said about Potter, I feel. The Gideon trilogy has a similar, sort of explained but kind of vague time travel mechanic that the Potter series also has. The series does have a few more loose ends between books than the predictable new teacher, same bad guy shtick that the Potter series does. It does follow the Tarman through the whole trilogy, but focuses, obviously, more on the time travel and the people that are stuck in one time or another, and those potential upcoming consequences that will be seen in the next book. That did keep me hungry for the next installment of Gideon, Peter, and Kate's misadventures as a tween reader. I will say that the audiobooks can show their age a little bit, as there is some hiss and sounds in the background of the audio that almost seem like they're supposed to add to the atmosphere as some kind of full audio production, but don't really fit the scenes they're in, instead being a confusing background noise. Now, this could be me just picking apart the audio as someone who messes with audio for their full-time job. It was still a bit off-putting, but the actual performance of the audiobook was wonderful to listen to. I have to say that my favorite character to follow in these books is Gideon, a complex hero that looks after these misfit children and not only believes them, but tries his best to help in situations the kids don't understand, and even those that he finds puzzling, like Talk of the Future or the time travel device itself. The next series I'd like to recommend is something which I swear I recall changing over the years, from the Ink series to the Inkworld trilogy, now just the Inkworld. Of course, I'm talking about the series by Cornelia Funke. This originally released in German between 2003 and 2008. Cornelia Funke has even been called the German JK Rowling, though I'd argue she's better than Rowling. You may have even seen the film that came out in 2008 following the events of the first book, Inkheart. Though it does have some changes from the book to the movie, which I rather dislike, but I won't go into those here. The other books, Inkspell and Inkdeath, and the later follow-up, The Color of Revenge, follow a young girl named Maggie Folkart. Although I always pronounced it as Folchart, regardless. She has grown up with a single father, Mo, who travels around as a bookbinder, often taking his daughter with him on his book-fixing adventure, his book-doctoring adventures, if you will. The two of them are certified bookworms. At the beginning of the first book, Maggie discovers that her father has the ability to read characters out of books and into the real world when reading aloud. One of these characters, called Dustfinger, shows up one night, insisting Mo return him to his book, and warning that the villain Mo read out of the book with Dustfinger is coming for Mo. This spurs Mo to take his daughter on a trip to a safer location, meeting up with his sister-in-law, Maggie's Aunt Eleanor, a collector of rare books. Maggie, Mo, Eleanor, and an expanding cast of characters are great readers to read about in the world of this book and book within a book. I will admit that while I have reread the first 3 books of this series many times, I have yet to read the newest book, The Color of Revenge, even once. So I cannot vouch for the 4th book, but the first 3 are amazing. Not only has Cornelia Funke made amazing characters, capturing what feels like to be a voracious reader, and even a family of readers, which was my own experience growing up, but she has also created an immense world of fantasy, both in our world and the fantastical world of Fae and Fire Eaters, Inkheart. She comes at the topic of books from so many angles, and even from the perspective of an author character, and seems to understand all of them and characterize all these individuals so well they leap off the page whether they've come from our world or from the world of a book within a book. Here's a little fun fact. The character of Mortimer Folkart was based on Brendan Fraser. He was a model for the boyish father that Mo is to his daughter, Maggie. Not only does Fraser then get cast and play the part wonderfully in the film, but he also voices the audiobook for the second book in the series, Inkspell, with a great capture of the character voices from the film and original characters to the sequel. It has me wishing he voiced all of the audiobooks, but they are a wonderful listen with the other narrators as well. Some of my favorite characters from the book or the series are Dustfinger and Maggie. But I will admit that all the characters here leap off the page with this series, and at this point in time, I look forward to reading the most recent book in the series, The Color of Revenge, both in print and listening to it in audio, as I have the rest of the series in both formats. Last, but far from least, is a series that is older than the Potterverse itself, but also features a world of wizards. Diane Duane's Young Wizard series. The first book was published back in 1983, called So You Want to Be a Wizard. The series follows Nita Callahan, a bookish girl who, after running to a local library to escape her bullies, discovers a book called So You Want to Be a Wizard, a special manual about wizardry complete with a wizard's oath. At first, she doesn't take this seriously, but says the oath anyways. Afterwards, she discovers that the world of wizards is real, and she just signed herself up to be one. This means caring for the Earth and even the universe, along with other wizards trying to maintain life around the universe using wizardry, often through spells in the speech. The speech being, obviously, its own language, which is almost like a programming language for everywhere in the universe. Much like a computer, through using the right phrases in the speech, one can alter how life, even other beings, function. This is not something taken lightly. Nita soon meets Kit Rodriguez, a fellow wizard around her age who lives near her and has also recently taken the oath. Together they team up to take on huge jobs to protect not just New York, but planet Earth itself and other planets of wizards and non-wizards alike. This series makes wizardry a bit more of a science-based field, kind of like Fullmetal Alchemist, complete with spell circles alongside wands. Unlike in Potter, the Young Wizard series makes it so basically anyone can become a wizard, through taking the oath and completing their first mission called an ordeal. Often an ordeal means going up against a force called the Lone Power, an old wizard who invented entropy, entropy being a state of disorder and chaos, including the concept of death. The Lone Power is the big bad in the series, basically responsible for bringing the concepts of death and chaos to different worlds throughout the universe. Throughout the series, Nita and Kit meet with a lot of other wizards, like the advisory turned senior wizards, Tom and Carl, that give our protagonists and other local wizards most of their missions. These are two older wizards who live with each other as a writer of spells and fiction, and a seller of commercials and time, respectively. Although, to my knowledge, it is not confirmed in the books that Tom and Carl are a gay couple, I feel it is heavily implied within the books. I believe Diane Duane has also confirmed this fact online to fans. There are also other wizards of different species, like Suri the whale and Philippe, a Christmas tree-shaped alien. I quite enjoy that there are wizards of all kinds of different species that are allowed to interact with one another throughout the series, being able to communicate with the speech as a sort of mutually understandable language that happens to also be used for magic. There's also other representation for humans within the books, like a young wizard named Daryl, who is confirmed to be autistic, and it is a major part of his character arc, including his own wizarding ordeal. In the original books, Daryl's autism is not portrayed very well, according to autistic fans, as not only is Daryl said to be in his own world, literally and figuratively, his autism is the reason for his ordeal taking so long. He is keeping the Lone Power at bay thanks to his autism, which he then splits off from his real self at the end of the original book, essentially curing his autism and puzzling the Lone Power. Many autistic readers have taken issue with the idea that Daryl's autism is something to be cured and done away with, as well as other things Duane wrote about autism spectrum disorder in the story. The cool thing is, though, that Diane Duane heard this feedback and implemented it in her updated Millennium editions of the series. This is the main reason that I love Diane Duane. She is willing to learn and change from her mistakes instead of doubling down and bringing harm to the community she has represented in her books. She has instead taken that feedback and used it to better herself and her writing. Now, this is a good time to bring up the Millennium editions of Duane's series. Since the series is still receiving entries to this day, there's been a lot of time from book 1 being published to the most recent main series entry of, I believe it's book 10, Games Wizards Play, which was published in 2016. That means that technology has changed, and facts like our understanding of autism and even the universe has changed too. Every book was originally set when it was published, but it makes for a strange timeline of Apple IIc being a modern computer for the family, alongside a wizard who uses an iPod for magical purposes. With all these changes over literal decades, Diane Duane started to update and re-release her books with updated information and a more cohesive timeline. She started to release these as the New Millennium ebook editions in 2012. Unfortunately, this does mean that older media, like the audiobooks, have not all received these updates. As I have been listening to the audiobooks as my main way to take in the series over the years, I've not had these updated versions. I noticed this the most when being introduced to Daryl, as a lot of the information about autism was not up to date, to my understanding. I do wish that the audiobooks could be re-recorded to reflect these changes, but I understand that this takes time and a lot of money to re-record up to 10 different books. I won't fault Duane for that, as she has even commented on this herself on Tumblr. As with the Inkworld series, I am not quite caught up on all the books in the Young Wizard series. At this point in time, I am 8 books into the series. I have yet to read the 9th book, A Wizard of Mars, as well as any spin-off novellas and short stories, mostly because those seem to exist only as ebooks, which I don't read much of these days. However, I am still working my way through the series on audio, with A Wizard of Mars and Games Wizards Play being on my to-be-read list. Because of the vast world of wizardry, I think it's quite obvious why I recommend that you read this series instead of giving Rowling more of your money. Yes, if you look this up, it is listed as a sci-fi series, but because of its obvious wizardry parallels, I think that it's still a fun, fantastical series. If you want to read over 1 million words about wizards, why not let it be the ones that make it so anyone has potential to be a wizard through an oath, not trapped away because you weren't born to the right parents? I would love to see people dressing up and cosplaying as Meggie, Dustfinger, Gideon Seymour, or Nita and Kit. Heck, if you want your wizard OC, I'd argue the Young Wizard series has just as many options with tons of different races of wizards from different planets across the universe. You can still have your Wand of Rowanwood or a book of spells. You can even upgrade your wizard's manual to be an accessory like a computer or perhaps even a phone app. These are just 3 series that I've personally loved and that have expanded my reading beyond the Potterverse, which I've seen many fans or ex-fans struggling to fill that Potter-shaped hole. I hope that these suggestions might help at least a few of you out there find something fun and a little bit less harmful. Of course, there are a ton of other books out there that I didn't mention. If it isn't obvious, this is nowhere close to being any sort of exhaustive guide to the world outside of JK Rowling's transphobia. There are a ton of series that I simply don't have the experience with, so I can't personally recommend. I've heard a lot of great things about series like Redwall, Artemis Fowl, and of course Discworld. I've even read a lot of the Septimus Heap series, but never finished the series, and not since the original books came out over a decade ago. At this point though, I can't talk about those series or authors with the same love that I have for Linda Buckley Archer, Diane Duane, and Cornelia Funke. With this all being said, I do want to make this a little bit future-proof. These recommendations are made with the knowledge that I have been able to find about these authors and their works as of late 2025. If something changes, if somebody I've recommended here as some kind of wild freakout that I've either not seen or that happens after the writing or releasing of this video, let me know in the comments. I want to be careful about who I support here and who I shout out. But of course, I want to hear about your experience with these series. What do you love about the Inkworld, Time Travelers series, and Young Wizards series? These are all books that I don't see getting a lot of love. When I happen to see even one of these books within a YouTube video or even in real life, it gets me so excited to know that somebody else has read the same little science fiction fantasy series that I have and enjoyed it enough to keep it on their shelf. So please, leave your thoughts on these series down in the comments. I do not want this to become a place for transphobia, queerphobia, JK Rowling apologetics, or significant bashing of any author. If you have problems with any of the authors I've mentioned in this video, you can mention it, but please don't go off attacking anybody, even Rowling, due to the things I said, the things they wrote, or the things that you assumed. This is a space for book recommendations, and a way to expand everyone's literary horizons just a little bit. If you have a series that you think I should read based on the series that I mentioned in this video, please let me know. If you would like me to go into more detail about any one or even all of these series in other videos, let me know too. While I dove into these books a little bit, I didn't go near as in-depth as I wanted to for any of these books. I'd love to eventually talk about these books and series in depth, really diving deep with note-taking, fan theories, and everything. But this wasn't that video. If you want that video for any of the series mentioned, let me know. I have no idea what timeline for any of that potential content would be, but I would still love to share the love of these series if that's what you want to see. I am still working on videos for this channel, some of which have been in the works for a long time, but it's slow going. So I'm thankful for everyone who has stuck around, not just for the end of this video, but in general. If you have any other subjects about mental health or LGBTQIA+ topics about Canadian history that you'd like to see covered, please let me know down in the comments. As always, my resources are listed in the description down below. Thanks for watching the OCD MB. Stay safe out there.